What's up, everybody? I am Dennis Ori, professional foosball player. What does that mean, right? Hey, so what am I doing here today? I'm here to talk about the Foos-fit. This isn't the latest model, actually. I don't even have the latest one. I guess I'm not that special. So a lot of people have been asking about the Foos-fit. Kind of like, after the initial launch, I guess it's been about a year now, a year and a half. We've been working on updates, and I just want to kind of talk about, how I got involved in the project and kind of where we're at, and where we want to go with it. Some of the things I've been doing. So that's pretty much I made a video already, but it got a little bit long and winded, and because honestly, I'm not looking to make really a marketing video right now. Just kind of talk about the details of it. Maybe, hopefully I can make a couple of videos. Some of you may be interested in, some of your tech guys might want to know a little bit about the code and how it works and stuff like that. So first things first, about a year and a half ago, I was at a tournament actually, and I saw Brad Lorraine. I think Brian had just done some kind of advertisement for his funding campaign he was trying to do to generate some capital. But so I saw Brad at the tournament, sort of asked some questions, and then I didn't know he knew Brian, and then kind of linked up at the Bardo a year ago, and we kind of talked about some ideas on where we could go with the product, stuff like that. But the truth is that Brian kind of met me at a good time in my life, because I used to work corporate my whole life, about 18 years in telecom. I was a computer science major in college, and because we have our own business now, I have a lot of free time, so I was able to kind of commit to this and probably put a little bit more time than I should have, because if you ask my wife, she'll be like, he never leaves this room, right? So this is my office / bedroom. This is where I get kicked out when I'm bad. No, actually, we built this little room for like guests and stuff, because all the bedrooms are upstairs. So when grandparents and stuff come over, they don't like to go upstairs, the steps and stuff. So anyway, so this is my office. Sometimes I get kicked out of it, but this is where I live, right here. It's been about a year and a half now, and I can tell you, oh man, there was days and months where I worked 7 days a week, 10, 12-hour days, sometimes more. I'd get up at 7 in the morning, work till like 1 in the morning with just really limited breaks, because I was trying to learn the product and trying to see what I could do. So I got involved because when I was in college, I'm pretty old, so they didn't have laptops, you didn't have PCs, you didn't have things like that. So I always wanted to build something like a Foos-fit. I talked to a lot of buddies back in school, other guys who were involved with computers and stuff. And, as much as I wanted to do it, probably this generation, this time frame is the best time in the world to be able to make products like this, because the technology's advanced so much that, you have things like Arduino and stuff, and they allow you the ability to create off-the-shelf type products. Even though this isn't 100% off the shelf, there's a lot of custom stuff in it. The board is actually custom. But to even think about making something like that, 15, 20 years ago is, I'm not going to say impossible, but it was close to impossible. You could do it, but the amount of time and resources just to get it off the ground would have been astronomical. So this has always been a passion for me to make something like this. I always thought it would be the coolest thing in the world to create a thing that could, you could program defenses into it and it could play them back. So just so you know, when I got involved and I saw the first product, the guts of this product, what most of you have seen already, and what's out right now. There's actually more phases. There's 2 phases to this product. I think phase 1 is out, but there's actually a second phase coming. But even the most primitive view of this product or release of the product is still pretty cool. The fact that it can move and you can practice shooting on timings and stuff like that. A lot of people, I've heard people say, well, okay, I wanted to mimic a real defense and stuff. And honestly, so do I, right? That's why I got into it. So after I sat down with Brian and we kind of came to an agreement of, how we would approach the problem, he kind of told me some of the things that he wanted to see in the product. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, send me the code, send me the product. Let me take a look at it. Let me see. Look, just because I programmed, half my life doesn't mean that I can program this or program that, right? Because, people that aren't into computers will tell you like, oh, you're a computer guy, as if you know everything about computers, right? In this time frame, there are so many facets of computer science, from business, motors, everything you touch today, whether it's a car or a product, whatever, anything you could put your hands on has some kind of software, and they're all different. They're all different ways. There's interfaces, web design, stuff like that. So my background wasn't necessarily in building motors and stuff like this, right? So it took me a little bit of time to catch up to speed on it. But like I said, I had a lot of free time. So I was able to dedicate the time I needed. It probably took me the first couple months just to kind of get a good handle on what was going on. And we kind of came to an agreement with what he wanted. So ultimately, just so you know, our ultimate goal, and everything I'll talk about today actually has been beta tested, does work. Not quite ready for release. Some of it is, some of it could be released. For some reasons we haven't, maybe business reasons, but everything I'll talk about today pretty much works, right? Like I put it on the table just yesterday and I was working with it. So what you see right here in the product, just this is, I don't have any of the actually I have them over there and some of them are on the table upstairs, but there's like a spindle here that attaches with the strings and all that stuff. I don't have any of that on here because I actually 90% of the time I have them sitting right here. Sometimes I'll have two or three and I'll design most of the stuff right here and then I'll test it. I'll use my hand like this. So what the point of this video is to just kind of give a roundabout view, kind of tell you where we're at. FoosFit is still being worked on. I say it's just me alone, but Brian focuses mostly on the hardware side of things and some of the, putting the boards together and all kinds of stuff like that. He actually designed this product right here. So he 3D prints everything in house. I'm focused 100% on the software side of it. So I don't even really like working on hardware. I say I don't like it. It's just not, it's not something that really excites me. So working on the program and the software and seeing the output of that is actually, to me, much more gratifying. So that's kind of, he stays in his lane, I stay in my lane. Sometimes we come together on ideas. Brian, I don't know if you've met him. He's full of ideas. So sometimes I'm like, whoa, slow down, buddy. I can't keep up with you. I can't retain that much information. So I'm more the practical, what are we shooting for today? What are we shooting for tomorrow? I like to lay out my goals and stuff. So that's what I've been doing. But what this product could do originally was fairly random, right? It was a lot of random stuff. Our goal is to basically design a product. I don't know if you can hear my granddaughter is screaming right now, so it might get loud. I'm gonna have to pause the video, but anyway, our goal is to make this resemble or recreate true live defenses, right? What does that mean? So the idea is that we would like to be able to record real defenses and be able to play those back, right? And that's where we're at. So when I first started working, well, let me talk about my setup real quick. What I have over here is a Linux machine. This is where I mostly work on the Foos-fit itself. It's all in C++. And then on this side is where I work on the website. So there's an app, and that's where I work on the SQL database and the JavaScript app. It's using JSON, Ajax, all the buzz terms for the web. Um, and then the way this communicates, there's no wires as you can see, just a plug to plug it in. It all is communicating over what's called low energy Bluetooth. So the web app connects to the machine through BLE, they call it. And so when I originally started the project, um, the device had been created. Brian had worked with an engineering firm, and he had worked with some college guys, and he got the product to a certain point, right? And then he wanted to progress it forward, right? And let's be honest, foosball is not the NFL, right? We don't have endless amounts of funding and all that kind of stuff. So there was no way to move the product along by just cash alone. I mean, the amount of money you would spend, like he was spending with an engineering firm and they were doing some designs for him, you just can't justify the amount of money we take and whether there would even be a return, right? As much time as I spent on it, I don't know if I'll get the return for the time I did, but I can tell you this is that I've learned so much more than I ever knew about certain things about, web interfaces and stuff like that. So, no matter what, I don't look at it as a downside. I think that if we get everything working and out on the market like we want, we'll definitely make our money back. That's not really the concern. Who knows where it'll go? But we all play foosball. It's a passion for us. So it's almost like me giving back, and I'm also doing something that I've wanted to do for probably 15, 20 years. So it's all good. What I had to do though to implement this was because everything was very primitive and the interfaces were primitive, and I saw the long-term plan of where he wanted to go. I pretty much had to stop, not even think about, really where we're going. I had to start working on just basic constructs and design just to get a good platform to work from. So that took me a lot of time. I'll give you an example. As you can see, there's no window, there's no screen to look at. When this device fails, there's hardly any way to debug it. It's almost impossible. You put code into it, doesn't do what you want, and then you're just like going, what's going on, right? So it was literally driving me nuts. I even had him talk to the original designers at this, and I said, hey, how do y'all debug this thing? And they're like, just put code in and see what happens. I'm like, no. I would probably drive myself crazy. So what I did was, I was like, okay. I said, well, I'm going to create an interface that I can turn on the debug feature, right? And I wrote a debug feature inside of the device, so I could dump out data back to the web app. Whoa! Now we have our second problem. The original design only communicated one way to the device. It didn't talk back. So I had to create a whole interface to talk for the device to talk back to the web app, and I created a debug app on the device itself, so I could send in stuff. It would send results back to me, so I could basically kind of talk two-way to it and try to figure out what it was thinking or what it was doing. So if data wasn't dumping out right or the machine wasn't doing what I wanted, I could kind of get a hint of what was going on, right? I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but just that alone took me like 2 months just to do that. And then I just started building, like for instance, there's a lot of reasons that we have 4 devices right on the table. They need to talk to each other because they need to do things in sync and synchronize. Before you just like push a button here and that would start it. Well, that's not good enough, right? So I created a interface to where you could pair all the guys together, right? So you could start your app up. You could connect all the guys. You could say pair each one. You can have 2 pair, 3 pair, 4 pair, whatever you want to do. Now, whatever you do to the device, anytime you ask one device to do something, it mimics that to all 4 devices. So, all these little things I had to think of, right? I started this document here, this Word document, and I just started documenting everything I thought I needed, everything that needed to be done, any kind of tools I need to write, everything, anything I learn or a document. So right now, in about a year and a half, I'm up to 191 pages of documentation. It talks about how the thing works, the whole design, everything. So, and mostly I document for myself as well because I'm getting older and I forget more than I'm learning. So um, I'll do stuff a week ago and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking, right? Uh, so yeah, there's just a whole bunch of design that had to go in, you know, and then we created all these different features, right? I started all these features and so an example is, I'm sure many of you seen Dustin Gatliff's pull the trigger feature. It's a voice activated little practice tool he wrote. So you can say like you set up your requirements, shoot in 2 to 5 seconds, stuff like that. And then it'll say, pull side, push side, or long pull, or short pull, whatever. So I wanted to mimic that. So I call that the practice feature on here. So I actually mimicked his tool. There's a few things on the web interface side that I'd like to clean up. It's something I did a long time ago, so I want to go back and revisit it. But the idea is that you can set the Foos-fit up on the table. You put it in the positions you want in the defensive position, and then you hit start. You can set your levels, and you can set fakes, no fakes, sound, no sounds, and stuff like that. You set your time ranges. You set your complexity. Do you want fakes or no fakes? And then it will mimic those. So it'll say, get ready, start, or set, or whatever. And then if you have fakes on, it'll fake back and forth, and it'll go, and it'll open up the hole. And when it opens it, boom, you got to shoot. And you never know what side. It does it randomly. So it's all set up to try to be kind of almost like you would see in a real game where you can't detect what side's going to open and when and what the person's thinking, right? You can turn fakes off, so it just sits there and then just opens and closes. You can set the speed at which it opens and closes, so you can do what I call static or dynamic. If you set dynamic, then it changes the speed it opens, and it changes how many fakes it does, and there's just all kind of little nuances, right, to make it tougher. I can remember the first time I finished that feature, and I put it on the table, and I even had it set at like level 1 or something, right? It's super easy. And I'm doing my rollover, and it opened up. I totally fumbled the shot like 5 times in a row because I was more amazed than anything, but at the same time, you don't realize how hard it is. It opened up and I was like, "Blah!" And I just banged the wall or something, and it took me. But the cool part is after I started working with it and I practiced with it for a little while, it was really neat because it would open and you try to go really quick and you realize, wow, maybe my takeoff's not as smooth and fast as I thought it was, right? Or I'm not able to react like I thought. This thing is going to tell you, right? Like pull the trigger is a great idea. It's like the first step to technology, right? But you take off and you shoot, you're going to make it, right? Because there's nothing there to really block you. So that's one of the features that was first developed. And it was kind of a test for me to see if I could do it. I mean, anybody that knows about computer science, that sounds like a simple little feature to do, but let me tell you, it was not. I had to create a full state machine, all 3 or 4 devices. If you're doing just a goalie shot, it also does 4, so you can do a zone, but just the 2 are communicating back, and they have to respond, and I have to go through the state machine. What state am I at? What's coming next? Am I throwing fakes? It's like this whole. I can remember on vacation, I'm driving in my car like 8 hours to go somewhere, and all I'm thinking about is this crazy Foos-fit design, right? And my wife's talking, and she's like, "Are you hearing a word I'm saying?" I'm like, "No, I'm trying to come up with this crazy design," right? So that's been my life for like the last year and a half. But so then that's the first thing, right? That was one of the first things. I called my dad one time and I said, "Dad, I finally used calculus. 20 years out of school, and I finally used calculus." He started laughing, but because I also created. You can connect two devices, and you can do what's called a shuffle. Well, you would think, oh, that's easy, right? Just have both guys shuffling back and forth. But getting 2 devices to shuffle in sync is not very easy. They're both motors, and they're going to do what they want to do, right? So I actually had to communicate between the 3, the app and the 2 devices. I have all these ping messages coming back and forth, and it's using calculus, and it's using something called PID. Most of y'all are. PID is something that's in everything. Cruise control, drones, everything uses PID. Anything you can think of that drives motors has something called PID in it. So this actually implemented PID to do the shuffling, right? So that was a really, really neat thing I did for myself, because, every step of the way I've been learning more and more of the things that I didn't even know that existed. So, and the biggest and the coolest feature that actually I spent the most time on so far now, and it's I don't know if it'll be the next thing we release. We're getting there. It does work, but we will release a part of it. So I'll talk about the part we are going to release, and that is the coolest thing I think is you can do what's called record on this thing. So just like an MP3 player will pop up on the screen, and if I do another video, I'm going to do one where I'm actually on the screen. I'm going to show you some of the interfaces and stuff like that. The neatest thing is it's called record, right? You can go to your table. You can say, you know what? There's this little pattern that always gives me trouble. You can hit record. You can do the little pattern. You can even really shoot on somebody, or have somebody shoot on you while you recreate the real defense. And then when you're done, you hit stop. And now that pattern is in the machine. Whatever you can dream up is in the machine. So now you can hit play. You can hit play, and you can have it repeat that pattern over and over, and you can practice shooting on it, whatever it was, whether it's a shuffle where they spread, or it's a motion where they bring in Chucky, or whatever it is that confuses you. You can work on that defense. In fact, you can create a string of them, and you can record them all, and you can play them all back. Now, what took me so long was, in order to keep all these defenses, I had to create a database from scratch. So I created a MySQL database. It communicates, it stores all, it has Foos player profiles. So if you're an owner of a FoosFit, you'll get a profile. You'll log into your profile. You can store all your defenses you create in there. And you can mark them as, now this is a whole nother thing I'll talk about in a second, of how you can monetize or whatever your defenses. But for now, let's hold off on that. But basically, every defense you create, you can say, pull from device. It'll pull it back to the web app. You can go to the database. You can hit save. It's going to save that defense. You can give it its name, criteria, all this kind of stuff. And then create another one. So now you can create a curriculum of defenses. And you can practice. So you can do all shuffles, or all standard defenses, all reverses, or post defense where it comes off, and you can do different timings. Whatever you can dream, you can create, right? And that's you doing it at home, nothing else but this FoosFit and the app, right? So that feature's ready. We'll probably deploy that before our next phase of this, which is on top of that. That'll give us some time to kind of beta test with people that have it. We'll have an idea how well it's working. And kind of, honestly, there's always, anytime you write software, there's bugs, right? So it'll kind of, we get some kinks out of there. And but the ultimate goal, which is based on the record feature, which the funny part about the record feature is, while I was working on what's called playback feature, is when I discovered the record feature. I was doing all this code, and I realized, told Brian, I said, man, I think I can actually do a record feature with this. I said, give me a couple of days. So in about 2 or 3 days over the weekend, I was able to figure out, and I made it work. And we were just like, wow, this is awesome. So, but ultimately, and we'll go into some of the design aspects later, but we're creating what's called playback feature. You'll be able to put sensors, which we have beta tested. Brian is actually, since he does all the hardware, he's making the little boxes to hold the sensors, the mount to the table and stuff. But for now, we just kind of rigged them on there. I don't know. I think he used some Velcro or something. But the idea is you're going to mount the sensors on the table. It's going to be picking up all this defense data, delivering it to a box that is going to distribute the data, and it's going to store it all, and it's going to ship it to the web app. So that's one side of it. The other side is we need a way to divide all these defenses up, right? We need a way to say, okay, that was Tony shooting on Ryan, attempt 1, Tony shooting on Ryan, attempt 2, whatever, right? And this is open singles, first game, second game, whatever, right? time, whatever, because you know you want to go back and play these things. You need some kind of way to manage all this, right? And in order to capture a whole match, we're going to call it rendering. So we have an app that I built that you can either hold in your hand, you can put it on a laptop or a tablet or whatever. Um, it'll actually give a representation of the table. So while the live match is going on, I'm sure y'all seen Clay Toomey's stats that he does. Very similar approach. We're gonna have an app where you just boom, boom, boom. You just hitting the button of what's happening in the match. Once the match is over, you hit stop. It's gonna dump all that data. It's gonna marry the flight sensor data that's on the table with the render data, and it delivers it. It actually right now delivers it to an Excel spreadsheet, which has a bunch of VBA code. It marries it all together, and then it pushes it into the using CSV files into the database that we have. It's a lot of work, and it does all this stuff, and it loads it into the database. And at that point, you can physically log in with your user ID. Boom, you can say, I want to search for Tony, play in open singles at the World Championships or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It'll pop up all the defenses for that game. And then you can it's just like an MP3 player. It starts at a temp 1, and you can do looping, rotate, skip, whatever you want to do. But it's going to play the next one, play the next one, play the next one. And it also keeps metadata against them. So that way, for instance, you're playing a temp a year from now, like who was shooting on who? Did they score the shots or not, right? Maybe you only want to see the 10 shots that were scored on Tony, not the 20 that weren't, right? Or maybe you want to see the 20 that weren't, right? You want to see what was his defense then, or right? You can do some comparisons, right? Or Ryan Moore made a crazy shot out of the back on 4-4 or whatever to win the 5th game or something like that, right? So you'll be able to see that shot, and you can see the zone, and you can actually play that zone using the Foos-fits. You have 4 Foos-fits on the table, boom, right? So there's a lot of great things coming. Brian is actually working on a tournament structure. We're thinking that maybe we could, since we have these databases and we can ship these defenses out across the world, that we can actually set up some kind of little mini tournaments, right? Where you do like certain activities and everybody signs up, right? So I don't want to get into that now because there's a lot of details about that even I don't know, because Brian's kind of working on that. My goal, what is my goal? My goal is to create as much product, as much infrastructure as possible, kind of leave it open-ended, right? So I will talk about one other thing before I go today is concerning the database. Something that actually, I don't know, many of you probably know David Hicks. I was talking to David Hicks one time because he's actually doing some other work. We're working together on another project. And I was telling him about the database and how, and he actually, that's his go-to thing, right? He's at his work, that's his main thing is working with SQL databases. So he had the idea of being able to mark the defenses as different categories. And what does that mean? Well, so what we did in the database is you can mark your defenses as private, public, or paid. So every defense you create by default is marked as private, okay? So if you create a defense or set, or maybe you want to create a curriculum for practice, maybe you're Tony Spreeman and you want to create a bunch of defenses, right? So whatever, you're proud of your defenses and you say, you know what? I want to share my defenses with the world for free. Okay, great. All you have to do is go there and set your defenses public. Now, everybody that is a member of the Foos-fit platform can see your defenses, right? Whatever ones you mark public. Or maybe you are Tony, or maybe you're Todd or Ryan or whatever, and you want to make some defenses and you want to sell them, right? You can mark them as paid. Now, only people that can see those defenses are people that have paid for them. So they'll go to like wefoos.com. They'll order, almost like Jim Stevens does. You can buy a package or whatever, and maybe you can buy 10 defenses or whatever. We haven't really worked. That's where the logistics, when I said we haven't deployed some of this stuff because there's so many business things that have to be done. It's all fun and games until you get to the business side, and then you're like, how do you manage all this, right? So, but the idea is that you can mark them as paid. You can create curriculums of defenses or training classes. Maybe Tony gets on YouTube one night and he says, I'm going to be on YouTube for an hour using the Foos-fit. I'm going to be doing some discussions on defenses. Everything I do is going to be recorded. If you want to play those Foos-fit defenses later, it's $20 to buy them all for the hour or whatever, right? So, you think of the idea and it can be done. So my last point before I go is I'm going to make another video. If you have any comments on what you want to see, just let us know. I would like to, share some of the code if somebody wants to see that. Maybe you're interested in the code. Share some of the really, intricate details of how things are designed. And then maybe you just want to see the app. What does the app look like or whatever, right? Stop right here. I'm sure I'll get some positive comments. Well, I'm sure I'll get negative comments. Look, it's a one-man/two-man show. I'm doing all the coding. Brian's doing all the hardware. Let me tell you something. You have no idea when you deliver a product how much work it's going to be, how much time, the amount, just creating one little button on the interface, and then you got to make it bulletproof so somebody can't actually do something crazy and break something, or it doesn't do what they want, or it just gets crazy. So, I took the infrastructure that was there and we tried to build upon it. Sure, you could step back and say, well, I should have did it this way. But look, you can't stop every time you come up with an idea and just roll back and, you would never complete anything, right? So, yes, there are certain things that maybe we, could have done a little bit different, but, it is what it is. So, I know that Brian, both of us were lucky in a lot of ways. He had an idea. He had people offering him money and all this kind of investments and stuff, but it wasn't money that was going to hold this thing back. It was somebody willing to put the time in, and he caught me in a lucky time in life because I was able to really put probably more time than I ever thought I would do into it. And I've enjoyed every minute of it, but like I told him, I said, I don't think you would have found anybody else. You just caught me in a really good time in life to be able to do this. So, just so you know, this is not the product that actually goes out right now. This is like an older product. I'm not special enough to have the newest one, right? But the newer one actually fits on any table. So there's like a big bolt here, and you can put it on. It's got some spacers and all kinds of stuff. This is actually one of the older ones. In fact, the back comes off because that's the control board in there. And so I actually did so much testing on when I burnt it up. Probably loaded the software on it, 3,000 times or whatever, and so I had to put a new board in it. But man, these products are actually pretty durable. So that's all I have for today. I hope that gives you an idea of kind of where we're going with the product. A little bit about me. I can talk a little bit more about me or whatever, just kind of like who am I, where I came from as a foosball player. But for now, we'll just leave it at that, and y'all have a good day. Thanks.